Blog Talk Radio.
Good evening and welcome to Desperate House Witches. I am Doreen Wallace, joined as always by my lovely sister Raina Starr. How you doing, Mama?
We'll see how lovely I am.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
All right. Okay. So, good evening. Welcome to Desperate House Witches. We are really excited tonight because we have Lied to Angelus on later on the show. I'm way excited. A lot of folks don't know who she is. Well, you gonna find out. I'm here to tell you. Okay, so before that, let's thank our sponsors. I would like to, of course, as always, thank the head witch herself, Dorothy Morrison, Wicked Witch Studios. She just had a fantastic blowout Month of Dorothy February sale. That was fantastic, which she was nice enough to extend into March 5th, which was wonderful. So I hope everybody got a nice big list of product over there. And, of course, our other sponsor, The Angry Cauldron at theangrycauldron.com. They are still doing the pre-orders on their World Magic candles. They have a Brige candle, and they have a Green Man candle. I've just ordered mine. I'm super psyched to get them. And I also ordered a Lakshmi candle because if you read the description, it sounds like it smells amazing. Actually, they all do. So please stop by theangrycauldron.com. Yes. Okay, so today was an interesting day, I have to say. It was my auntie's 73rd birthday today. And happy birthday. Yes, happy birthday to Auntie. And Auntie said, "So, what's new? How are things going?" And I proceeded to tell her, a bit of this and that about the children and everything else. So, we were talking about things on the radio, and I said, Auntie, I've got this radio show on Blog Talk Radio. Now, nobody in my family is computer literate except for me and my kids. No one on that side knows from a computer. And she pipes up and says, "Oh, you know who else has a show on the radio?" And I said, "Who, Auntie?" And she says, "Your mother." I said, wait, what? She says, "Yeah, your mother." Now, for those of you who are first-time listeners, let me just claim real quick, I have a very foul mouth, so if that bothers you, you may not want to listen to this show because I will let fly at any given moment. This may be one of them. So if anybody who has not listened to the show before, my mother is a Pentecostal preacher. So I went, "Excuse me?" She's like, "Oh, yeah, your mother does sermons and all this kind of rot on the radio as well." I did not have this information prior to today. So I find it very interesting that at this point in my life, I'm having competing shows with my mother. I do not know the name of the show. I do not know if it's actually on Blog Talk Radio. My aunt seems to think it is, but I don't think it is. I think my mother has somehow wormed her way into a Christian radio station. This is fucking amazing. Wow.
Oh, my fucking God.
Yeah, I know. And so I was fascinated by this little fucking turn of events. I'm like, oh, great. So,
oh, my God.
One side for the Christians and one side for the pagans. Will it be a duel eventually? Maybe by the time I'm 77, it'll happen. No, you know, you can never tell. So anyway, speaking of interesting happenings and strange stories, I'm going to just address the elephant that's not in the room, or is in the room. So it came to my attention this week through a few people asking me about this situation that seems to have happened online. I was none the wiser about any of this because I get tired easily. I have a day job. I have commitments. I got things I got to do like everybody else in the world. And apparently, and I'm not going to name names because if you know the story, then you know who I'm talking about. And if you don't, it's just a cautionary tale, I guess, from my view. It's just my opinion. So apparently there was a situation where there was somebody doing some casting at some point and encouraging others to do some casting. And it's funny because a few weeks ago we had from Dragon Ritual Drummers, Utu was on. Utu. And Drago was on with him, and we were discussing that a few weeks ago prior to that, there had been this large group of people wanting to cast against the president. And I cast a jaundiced eye at this kind of thing anyway, because quite frankly, I think what you cast for in that regard is really personal. To be honest with you, I would rather swing my sagging naked tits in Macy's window than discuss what I cast privately, okay? I think it's that intensely personal. So, you know, casting is one thing. Casting publicly is another thing. Casting against another pagan publicly is probably yet another thing. My feeling about this is if you're going to be a douchebag, keep your douchebaggery to your fucking self. We don't need to, you know, if you're going to do something that is fucking questionable, and I'm not condoning or not condoning questionable activity. I'm just saying if you're going to do something in such a way that it could potentially become public, then I don't know what your deal is. It doesn't seem like a smart way to go, in my opinion. So, you know, keep your douchey activities to yourself. Now, as far as whatever backlash said persons suffered for engaging such a level of douchebaggery, you know, when I was first, it was explained to me, because I really don't know the players all that well. I know the names, but I don't know the people. I don't really know these people. I'm kind of like, okay, so there was some kind of a low-level retaliation having to do with an outing of a name, and I'm like, well, you know, we're all actually fucking public, and anybody can get anybody's name at any fucking time, really. So, you know, and while I don't think outing in and of itself is a cool thing to do, I will tell you that when someone you love is being attacked, you know, you have to ask yourself, well, to what lengths would you go? So yeah. I don't know what the beginning of this was. I don't know where the end of this is going, but my feeling is I don't know enough to know shit about shit except for the information that was given to me, and I'm like, don't cast like that. Don't try to drag people or encourage people to do shit like this in public. I mean, if you have a friend and you and your friend are in complete agreement and you want to do something privately, then do it privately. The rest of us don't need that in our air. pagans shouldn't be attacking pagans. We have plenty of other fucking people to do that for us. You know,
right.
I mean, everybody's got to answer for their own shit. Listen, I'm far from perfect. Don't even know what perfect would look like in my life. And I'm fucking okay with that because I know I'm here to learn shit. Because I don't know anything. I don't. And I admit that to you guys all the time. I don't know shit about shit. I'm here to learn.
Well, and I
yeah.
have like a bit of advice because, and not that I heeded this at first, but just stay out of it. If just don't take sides. Even if you're taking a side, don't take sides, as not publicly. And I have apologized to parties involved for that, just because I have a hair trigger temper and didn't have full grasp of the situation. Not that I'm taking sides, but that's been taken care of, and that will never happen again. So just keep it to yourself.
Well, my feeling is just don't be a dick. And if you're going to be a dick in public, don't be surprised when people react to it.
Exactly.
Listen, I've made all manner of mistakes. I don't know everything, as I've said many, many times. Again, we're all human, but just try not to be a dick. That's kind of the bottom line. Don't be a douchebag.
Yeah.
So anyway, now that I got that off my chest. Oh, you're sweet. But I just needed to get that off my chest because, I had a couple of people message me and say, so what do you think of this? And I'm like, huh? What? I mean, somebody made a public post about what happened, one of the parties involved, and I was like, oh, okay, oh, okay, oh, okay. That's more information than I had. Okay. I just don't want people to hurt each other. Life's hard enough, It just really is. There's joy and beauty, but the daily grind of just trying to pay bills can be fucking exhausting. Dude, and I'm sweating in my office, and the minute I leave my office, my tits are on ice cubes. I cannot deal with the change of weather. I heard at some point the next couple of days, this morning it was 27 when I left the house. Friggin' in like a couple of days, it'll be almost 80 again. I'm like, what the fuck? I look at bees and I look at mosquitoes and I'm like, bees good. Mosquitoes go away.
Yeah, right?
So I
piss off.
But the whole thing about global warming still being this not accepted by everybody as fact really freaks me out. I don't get it. We see the evidence of it daily and more intensely every year. There's a reason why strains of the flu are becoming stronger. We've had more people die of the flu in this state in the past 2 weeks than I think in the previous year, just from the flu. That's fucked up. Nature is trying to tell us something.
Yeah, get off my fucking planet. That's what she's trying to tell us. Fuck off, all of you.
Seriously, it's pretty nerve-wracking when you hear people say, oh, well, no, this isn't man-made. The earth just does this. No, I don't think so. I'm saying computer says no.
Yeah, that's my favorite.
Yeah,
little man's getting tired of that as my notification too. He told me the other day, he's like, "You're not the boss of me, phone."
And he makes a valid point.
Yeah, I know.
But it's unbelievable. They dangle a piece of evidence over here that is really, I personally believe that the White House intentionally leaked those 2 pages of a 2005 tax return because it actually shows that fucking numbnuts paid a little bit of taxes. But it also showed he didn't make all that fucking much money in a relative sense. If you've paid $38 million in taxes, but you've only cleared a couple of $100 million, where are all these billions coming from? What is the sitch? Something is not right. So I'm thinking this is like bait to distract everyone from the fact that they're about to fucking lose whatever health care they have through Obamacare. And I'm sorry, this cracks me up. The fact that a lot of folks in rural areas and other areas didn't realize that ACA is Obamacare, I'm astounded. I am astounded at the lack of interest in picking up a newspaper or reading of any kind to find out what the real deal is. People are just walking around shocked.
Yeah, and the thing that ticks me off about that is, and I'm not saying I'm not on that ban, the fake media bullshit, but they do have somewhat of a responsibility because they were so determined. The people who voted that way and the news channels they watched, they were so determined and consistently called it Obamacare. They never did call it ACA. They never did refer to it as the Affordable Care Act. So, and like you said, most of these people, that didn't understand that didn't look into it. They just, Obamacare or whatever. So it's like that information sometimes needs to be force-fed to people, and they were force-feeding them the wrong information. So I don't know. I'm still kind of ticked off about that. I don't appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, I got to tell you, I had this little old couple come to see me today. And they showed up, sweet little old couple in their 80s, literally in their 80s. And I was helping them out with something, and I had a tech taking care of something for them. And I sat them down at a table just so we could hang out and spend a few minutes together. And, when you meet folks for the first time, you don't know what you're getting. It could be a real mixed bag.
Yeah.
And generally, older folks tend to vote, from my experience locally, they tend to be more of the Republican voters. This woman sits down and says, "It's really nice to meet you. Trump is fucking insane." I went, "Wow."
Wow. That was unprovoked. But awesome.
Totally unprovoked. She just said, "Hi, how you doing? The president's nuts." I'm like, what the hell?
She was gauging you.
I guess so, because I guess I looked startled because we have a mix of folks. There's only 2 Republicans in my office, but she wouldn't know that. And one of them was sitting there. And watching this son of a bitch turn green was hilarious. Loving it.
See, the God sent you a gift.
I'm telling you, she proceeded on a 15-minute diatribe about how awful the country is going to become, how awful it has become, and she's rich, this woman. This is not going to hurt her, affect her in the slightest. They're doing fine, okay? But real socially aware about more than the 2 feet around her head. So we had a blast. her husband just kind of sat there and nodded, but man, she was going off to anybody who would listen. It was beautiful. So you can't always judge somebody by appearance or even location or anything else for that matter, because it was one of the happiest moments of my day. It was
That's cool.
Beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful. So, allies in strange places. So what was your day like today? What's been going on with you, Chicklet?
Actually, it was fairly quiet. I did get to talk to Miss Janny D for her birthday. Happy birthday, Miss Janny D. So I was on the phone with her for a while. Yeah, her birthday. But and happy St. Patrick's Day to everybody who celebrates. I wound up making some corned beef and cabbage with potatoes, and I should have put carrots in too. But turns out that I'll be able to retry it tomorrow because the corned beef was really tough and it wasn't cooked all the way. So I was like, okay, I've got to go on air. You guys make some soup. We'll have it tomorrow.
Oh, boy.
I totally failed at dinner. I feel horrible.
Aw, You're good. You didn't fail at it. Listen, with all the successes you usually make.
Well, thank you. I'm not good at the corned beef.
Yeah, but you're good at a lot of other things. It's funny. One of our friends had posted online about, I guess it's Green Chef, or it's one of the cooking subscription things where they will send you ingredients and recipe cards. And my response to this, because I'm so fucking lazy, is, can somebody come and cook it for me too? Because I pay extra for that. I mean, and I will tell you, I used to belong to another one of these buy it and they send it to you things. I apologize, the name escapes me. And, you know, they would send you all of these ingredients and these recipe cards, and it was like, okay, 1, 2, 3, you're a cook now. Amazing. And we put out some pretty creative dishes, I have to say. But then they started forcing tofu on me, and I'm not a big tofu person. So I had to stop subscribing because, like, almost every meal had tofu in it. And I said, if I don't get to pick anymore, I'm not going to be happy, because I am picky when it comes to my food. I like it in large quantity. I like it tasty. I like it easy. I want someone to do it for me. So I'm great at making, of course, reservations. One of the favorite things I get to do once a week. So yay me. That's what tomorrow will be about.
Awesome.
Yeah. So that's my excitement. Oh, I had a child turn, in case I didn't mention it last week, I had a child turn 27 years old. Shit. I'm like, how are you getting so old and I still look so fucking good? Unbelievable.
Yay!
So that was pretty,
birthday boy.
That was pretty. Yeah, so that was pretty damn funny. The little one, as we call him, will be turning 25 here pretty soon. So, yeah, once they've hit a quarter century, it's kind of like, oh, you're older now. I guess that means I'm older too. Fabulous.
Yeah, I reject your reality and I substitute my own. I don't know how that 19-year-old got in my house. I don't know where he came from.
Who let him in?
Yeah.
But speaking of substituting your own reality and substituting someone's reality and inserting your own, I do have to say, I used to love that joke, but I don't love it anymore because it seems that people are actually living that way.
Yeah.
And
good point.
That's fucking me up a great deal. when the president of the United States accuses another president of spying and then has the nerve to say, or rather wiretapping or eavesdropping or in any other manner watching without a warrant. Yeah.
From the microwave.
Orange orangutan. Yeah, from a microwave. Where did they come up with this shit?
I don't know. That was like, wait, what? How? How does that work? I could understand if she said a smartphone or a television or a computer, something that actually has those fucking capabilities. But a microwave? I don't get that.
Kellyanne has some kind of special medicine in her Kool-Aid that makes her say some really off-the-wall things. But the fact of the matter is, he then had the nerve to go on TV and say, well, I use the term in quotes. Excuse me?
Oh, because we can see your fingers. You stupid motherfucker.
No.
Jesus.
What he was talking about was the Twitter, the tweet he had left about, it being in quotes. Well, because twice it wasn't in quotes, and then once it was in quotes. I may have that backwards, I'm not sure. But what the hell do quotation marks have to do with the fact that you have basically called someone a liar, a spy, any number of things, and liken it to Watergate? Are you kidding me? Like, dude, you're old enough to remember Watergate. You know that this has no relation, no bearing, no resemblance, no anything to Watergate. It's just, it astounds me trying to keep up with the bullshit, because unfortunately now we have to keep up with this kind of bullshit. Yeah. They have so many balls in the air and so many moving pieces, you don't know which lie to follow first. Oh, and speaking of things that have fallen apart, congratulations again, North Carolina, for not eliminating the bathroom bill, you fucking morons.
Yeah.
And did you notice that the former mayor actually had the temerity to post online that he can't get a job because of the bathroom bill? It's your fault. You're the one who brought this on. Unbelievable. The balls on this motherfucker. How dare he? I mean, really?
I know. I don't think you saw what I posted to him. You remember, like a while ago, I took a picture of my oldest son got a tiny violin, and I took a picture playing it. I sent that to him. It's like, oh, you can't get a job? Here, let me play you a song. I went after him. Like, I've gone after him like a rabid wolf the past couple years. I cannot stand McCrory. Cannot stand him.
Yeah, not my favorite person.
No. Apparently he's nobody's favorite person because nobody wants to hire him. And who
I got no
pity.
Is it? Well, I don't have any pity either because he's a fucking idiot.
Yeah.
With all the other fucking idiots. So I would like to take a second and read the back of our guest book, Initiation, because I am fascinated by this lady. So on the back of the cover, and I encourage everybody to look up her fantastic list of works. Initiation, a memoir, reflects on the moral and ideological changes of the last 60 years. Written in a perennial voice, DeAngelis Witch rewilds her own story and transforms cultural stereotypes into the language of myth. If you have never heard this woman speak, please subscribe to her YouTube channel. it's amazing. I can't even begin to describe how amazing this woman is. Just listening to her give some courses and lessons on YouTube, it's fascinating. She just blows me away. And we're going to talk about some of the things that she's discussed. We're going to talk about this memoir. I am so excited. And I think it's time for her to be on, actually.
I am actually trying to get her in because it would not connect. So I am double checking if you want to talk for a minute, if you don't mind.
Okay. Well, I'm going to continue to read from the back of the book in that case. And these items
I will call her.
What?
I will call her.
Oh.
I see your message, Lai, and I will call you. So
Okay.
I've got this. But go ahead,
So,
continue while I'm calling her.
While she's doing that, and I did not know this, born in 1951 and put up for adoption, DeAngelis was sold by the church for £300. She was always going to be a problem. I don't even know where to start. There's so many things to talk about. This is unbelievable.
The number you have dialed has not been recognized.
Uh-oh.
Please try again. The number you have dialed has not been recognized. Please try again.
Stop.
Okay.
Stop.
We get it.
And there we go.
Which people like magicians and sorcerers, conjurers, druids, and hoodoo hexers like cunning women and cunning men. Kadasha, I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. Shaman, Manitou, Angakok, Curandera, Bruja, enchanter and shape changer are needed in this world. We are the stories not bound by dogma or displayed as relics in a museum. We cause disquiet. We summon questions, but it's not our way to give answers. They take us to the wild and the frightening places, the cave entrance under the ice at the base of that crevice, blue handprints on the rock face imprinted with an ochre of confusion, by people we cannot name and from a time we cannot confirm. Once upon a time people of the reindeer, volcano people. Unbelievable.
Wow.
Fascinating. Okay. Do we have our guest?
No, not yet. I tell you what, I am going to try this maybe with a 1. Oh, there she is. I see her.
Oh. Yay.
Hello?
Have you got me?
Good morning. Welcome.
Okay, so that worked. All right.
Yay. I am so sorry
Yay.
about that.
Hi, Raina. Hi, Dorian. Don't be apologetic.
Hi.
I wouldn't do that much often.
Oh. Okay.
So where do you want to start? I'll start,
Oh.
actually, because it's very interesting. I was just listening to you earlier, and you were talking about some silly wah-wah thing about chucking out spells to prevent the president from doing whatever he's doing. And I think it's really, really silly, because my grandmother taught me to never boast, never threaten.
Right.
And so the minute a thing's mentioned to do with spellcrafting, it's negated, you see.
Mhm. I agree.
So that it's just fluff. Anyway, off you go. What do you want to talk about first?
Okay. Well, the first thing I want to talk about is you. And I was, while we were waiting to get you back on, I was reading the back of your book, Put Up for Adoption and Sold by the Church. Wow.
Yes. Lots of people were. It's an interesting little, I've spoken to several other people who were adopted at different times to me as well. And I don't think that it's very well known that the children are sold, but of course we were sold. We're a commodity.
Wow.
So so-called illegitimate children, define legitimacy. Legitimacy is really interesting. Fairly recently, because I've got a heritage, genealogically that goes back 2,000 years to Britain before the fucking Romans turned up and ruined everything.
Yes.
I applied for a
what I
British
want to talk about.
passport. I thought I'd get a British passport because I'm such a fucking Briton. And I applied for that, and because my biological mother is from there, which is where all this genealogy comes from. But because I'm a bastard, I got the paperwork back, even after I'd paid my money, I got the paperwork back from the British embassy thing saying you can't have a British passport because your father wasn't British. So I'm still having to answer to a fucking man in a position of authority, and I still have to prove my legitimacy at the age of 65 to some fucker behind a desk because my biological father is not known. There you go. 2,000 years worth of heritage doesn't count for anything.
That's crazy. You know, I'm trying to word it so that I don't go off the deep end because, I mean, yeah, the legitimacy that's a painful word. You know,
why
and
I
that's
wrote that book ultimately why I wrote that book is because that book is meant to focus mainly on women. And I've got a lot of responses from women that have read it particularly because of the trickster, mention of the trickster in there. But because of the simple fact that up until probably about the 70s or the 80s, women couldn't sign any documents without a man's co-signature to prove that they were legitimate people and that they had the ability to pay back a debt, for example, on a house or anything like that. So it's all really, really recent stuff. Yeah.
Well, and that was actually, I was listening to NPR on the way home. I think it was this morning, and there was a lady talking about that she couldn't get a credit card, you know, and she couldn't get a bank account without her husband's signature or her father's signature. You know, I mean, thankfully we've moved a little bit beyond that, but yeah, it still pops up.
Well, look, I don't know that we have because I'm sitting here with my feet up. It's a lovely Saturday morning here, looking around my sort of like ridiculously magical room, and I'm thinking about you two because I love you two. I think we've formed a really lovely friendship over the months, etc. And I'm very aware. I signed off last night. I said good night, hedgehogs, to all my lovely hedgehogs around the world. And a couple of people have gone private message me going, why have you called us hedgehogs? I said, because we are an endangered species. We're small. We're actually really, really cute and beautiful. And at the same time, we have lots of bristles and we have to put them up heaps, don't we?
Yes, we do.
Yes, ma'am.
There's been a lot, uncountable posts and articles in the papers, on Facebook, wherever, about feminism.
Yeah.
Even my daughter doesn't like the word feminism. We've had disputes about this. The simple fact that when I marched with the women's electoral lobby back in the 1960s, as a feminist, I also marched with my boyfriend at the time. Because the truth of it is, all of you people who've got all these opinions about clothing and makeup and whether it's feminist to have big tits or whatever else down the line that you're talking about, I'm terribly sorry, it's got to do with equal rights. So much blasphemy with the word. Forget the fucking word. The word is fair enough. The thing about it is, feminism is about equal rights. And therefore, that person you're talking about who couldn't get a credit card can't get a bank account. Women, for example, who have the labiaplasties nowadays, what are they doing that for? Who are they pleasing? Not themselves. It really is a big industry. There's a lot of industries attempting to eradicate women from going hairy, from not wearing makeup, and still being lovable. Or fuckable. That's the word, isn't it? Fuckable.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Either fuckable or not. Whose idea is that? Can you tell me whose idea that is? Is that yours or mine?
No, of course not.
Okay. And I've had some exquisite lovers in my life, and they've all got dicks. had a couple of women, been with a couple of women as well, and they're quite lovely. I haven't got a problem. No, I haven't got a problem with men that talk to me. I've got a problem with them when they call me girly, though. I've got a problem when they are a complete stranger in a business environment and they call me love or darling. Even problem. I got into trouble the other day talking about the word babe. Somebody had a real go at me because I said I don't like the word, it's pedophilic. And just put in all these love songs, etc. Oh, baby, baby. And I gave birth to 3 of them. I don't call my best friend or my beloved by that title. I give them a name. Anyway, I will shut up and ask me questions. Go on.
Oh my gosh, that was amazing. I see, and it's so ingrained that I don't even think about those things. That's the problem. That's a problem, you see.
Yeah,
I agree.
Even as people, what I know anthropologically is that language defines a culture.
Yeah.
Across the world, there has been the usurpation of indigenous people and indigenous people's cultures all the way from Rome, all the way through to now, and it's still happening. And when, first of all, the army goes in, and then it's followed by the missionaries, and then what happens is the big stick comes out. And whether we're talking about Polynesia or New Zealand or Australia, whether we're talking about Canada or England or Africa or Ireland, whether we're talking about America, what we're talking about is the big fucking stick that comes out. And the big stick comes out and hits the hands of the little children who've been misappropriated from their families, by the way, each time, and put into a Western-style education, which does them no service whatsoever, by denying them their culture and their language. And so they can by denying them their language and giving them a whitewashed, pale person's language that's an amorphism of many different languages, they destroy that culture. Now, what I'm very aware of was when I've travelled to different places, when I went to Wales and when I went to Ireland, you've still got the anglicisation of the names of streets and towns, etc., in English, but beneath them you've got the Cymru language and you've got the Gaelic language, the Irish language name places underneath it. So, for example, when I go to Roundstone, I'm actually going to a place called Clochnaron, which is Roundstone sounds like a big fucking stone put over a well. Clochnaron means the seal. There's a very big difference in the meanings when you find out what the language is. So that when you speak to me about and that I've spent my training as a word witch has been about eradicating things from my language that are alien to my language or alien to the way I choose to communicate with other people. And that means listening to everything to the point where it becomes ad nauseum. So I now suffer a thing called audio synesthesia, which means that I hear you literally.
Wow.
That's problematic.
Wow. So does that mean like you hear the intention behind, regardless of the words, what people are actually saying, like what they're thinking?
What they're saying, a lot of the time when people are talking, unfortunately a lot of New Age people, they have throwaway lines that they've picked up as part of a dialectic that they want to be able to utilize to be recognized as part of a particular group. I don't like it.
Oh, like signifiers to other people.
Fairly recently, I think it was, the Oxford Junior Dictionary got rid of a whole lot of words, everything from otter and to acorn, because it maintained that, I think it was 200 words. It maintained that children don't need those words anymore. They're not part of their way of life. And that indicates that children don't spend time in the wild places, with earth, with forest, with sea, with the burn. They don't have time to be there. So they're eradicating these words. There's a new movement, a deep ecological movement's been happening actually since the 1980s, but there's a very big, large surge, oceanic surge now of scholars who are reclaiming or rewilding the language that has become so shallow that it no longer makes any sense. And when it becomes shallow, my darlings, it becomes political.
Yes.
And that caning of our hands is still happening.
Wow. I did not know that. That's scary.
No, you do. You do know it.
It's making us automatons. It's stopping us from being connected to what we really are. And I get this. I see this happening. We're animals. We're animals.
Yes, thank you. We are animals. We're mammals. We're mammals with a certain kind of thinking. And what actually occurs when we walk away from the mountain and we walk out of the forest and we end up in concrete and asphalt jungles and a lot of steel and glass and heavy metal like that, and we have a lot of loud noise around us, it's an incredible confusion. It's an assault and a confusion, and we begin to think that we can't have a reality that's outside of that. And so you've got that's one thing. So that's one man-made forest that is not going to feed us. That's first, and that's dangerous. Do you understand what I mean by that? It's dangerous.
Yeah, yes, because we're losing the ability to feed ourselves, clothe ourselves, fend for ourselves, take care of our young, because everything is being stripped away that is what makes us human, that is that which makes us animals, which is what we actually are. We are being infiltrated with all of these things that are supposed to make life easier, but what they're doing actually is making us lazy blobs of walking.
No, they're not making us do that. What they're doing is selling us stuff. So all that's happen is you stop buying the stuff. My son, one of my sons is like, what? Your laptop is 13 years old? For fuck's sake, mother, you need an upgrade. And I'll go, actually, I don't. I'll get this one fixed up a little bit. Yes, he's making me a new computer, beside the point. That we don't need to keep. We don't. When I was the thing about age is great. I love it because I can remember being alive before plastic, except for Bakelite, and now I recognise the fact that plastic is destroying, is suffocating the oceans, and killing so many other species that are supposed to be our brothers and sisters of fur and fin and wing. And I don't understand why that killing is occurring. I don't understand why people aren't aware of what happens to their plastic bottles or why they even buy them, because, again, it's a fairly recent thing since the 1980s, plastic. But nowadays it's expected. So please, people, anybody listening, just get out, you think about it. Think about sort of like just sucking your water from the tap, for example. Putting in I've got a ceramic water purifier. And it's all clay. It's all clay, and we put our tap water in there, and we drink our tap water from the water purifier in a glass. Yeah. And when I travel to the gym, I've got a stainless steel bottle. I just use it every time, and the bin that's at the gym is full of plastic bottles. So I don't know where they're going to go. So each session, a gym session, some people bring their plastic bottle and they put it in there. Am I sounding like a harrigan?
No,
not at all.
No, not at all.
I don't want a soapbox, but I think that our awareness is being eroded, and it's eroded like to the point where we just don't want to fucking listen to it anymore. And when I was young, we were taught to keep everything. It went down through the generations. This chair that was bought from Singapore by my grandmother gets taken on, given to my mother at my grandmother's birth. That's a death. That's a funny one, my grandmother's death. And then gets given to me, and then the whole process then gets given to my children. So things were made to last. And at one stage I read a book, I don't remember the name of it, and it said a civilization will fall when it starts to use decrepit products. So it's happened all the way back with the viaducts and the aqueducts through Egypt, Greece, Rome, all those areas. Once they started creating inferior products, the civilization fell. Well, we're doing that right now, so I'm wondering what comes next. And back to that idea of not being able to weave our own cloth and kill our own goats, we've really got a disservice. So I maintain the new education's got to be about understanding what happens in an abattoir and then making choices associated with that. Whether you can grow your own food, how to know what, have you got soil where you are?
My sister does, I don't. Yeah.
You don't?
I do.
I do not. She does.
What does it feel like not to have soil?
It's weird. It's very weird because I've lived in houses where I've had soil, and I've lived in, I recently lived in a wonderful place, but it was far enough from work that I had to move closer. So I left the house and am now living in a city, and there's not even a place for a window box. I can't even grow herbs unless I grow something hydroponically in the house. Yeah.
Okay, so that's going to fuck with your head, woman.
A lot of things do. But I'm trying. But see, here's the thing about it, and the reason why I said it makes us lazy, all of this, is because when you have too many things so easily handed to you, as far as the ability to get information or the ability to buy these disposable things, you being the general it creates a disposable society, and it starts to leach into making disposable people. And I'm not saying that people are disposable, but what I am saying is that the further away you get from what you actually are, the easier it seems to be. But
no. You can't get away from
you don't think so?
You can't get away from who you actually are. And the bottom line is that when it comes down to it, you're going to be soil. I'm going to be soil.
Yeah.
That's just
right.
it. We're all eternal. So we can't get away from that. And terminology that like what you're using, though, not to be offensive, like what you're using, is going to fuck with your brain. You can't get away from yourself. Okay. What actually happens is that we're becoming disturbed. We're not good compost if we don't eat the right food. So I'm talking as witches. I'm not talking to the general public who want to go out and make sure that they stack up on frozen foods and eat pizza every day. And I'll get around to that. I don't know how much fucking time have we got? Not much. I'll get around to that because that's a really important thing that's happening right now. But
I'll extend the show.
We're gonna be on till 9 o'clock our time. So please continue.
Yeah.
The point I wanted to get to is as far as I'm concerned, I know about connectedness. I can feel every plant around me. I've got the carpet underneath my feet. I know has been here forever. When we were an infant Earth and we had these great seas and we had these one-cell creatures blobbing around in the great seas, every fucking thing that was in those one-cell creatures. You and me, the table in the room, the cat, my pie, the cat sitting on the little bit of sunshine, every piece of plastic, every single thing that was, is. So we are related to all of it. And if we're not aware of that relationship, we're doing ourselves a disfavor because you can talk spellcrafting to your heart's content. It's not going to work.
Right.
And it's not going to work because of a lack of mutuality.
Huh.
I wrote in those, that you had a look at one of the videos last night. In another one of the videos when I'm talking on Kabbalah, which is an organic thing, I'm talking about the movement, from what's called absolute through to Asaya, which is like a manifestation phenomenon. I want to ask you to do something for me tomorrow, to begin something for me tomorrow, and to do it within a week. Okay. Can I ask you to do something tomorrow and begin in a week? Can I ask you to make all right, you ready? I want you to make a box.
Okay.
Okay, so 2 seconds ago you didn't know I was going to say that.
No.
That's the place of where nothing exists in that 2 seconds. Nothing, there's a space there, a spell or a space. Nothing exists in those 2 seconds or that 1 second before I ask you to make a box. And since I've asked you to make a box, things start happening in your brain. Like, what the fuck is she on? Why the fuck should I make a box? What is this all about? Thoughts of that nature tend to happen with students of mine.
Yeah.
That's a place called absolute, where something comes into manifestation as a sparkle, but not an object. So there's a process that comes into before manifestation, and that process that goes through, in the end result, if you've made a box, which my students do, they come back and they don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. And we sit there in the room and they show me the different boxes they've made, and they tell me all about the journey from the moment I've said it to the actual moment they've turned up at the, stop, my phone is pinging, from the moment I've said it to the moment they actually turn up proud as punch with their handmade boxes. And all the time of that 1 week, journey's gone on.
Yeah.
They've had to learn. If they didn't know how to use tools, they've had to learn how to use tools. If they didn't know where to get screws, they've had to go to Bunnings, which we've got here. Bunnings is the god of hardware in Australia. They've had to go to Bunnings, and they've actually met a person in an aisle of Bunnings and goes, I have to make a fucking box for my teacher. Where do I get glue? Oh, do you know how to make a box, says the person in the aisle. No, says my student. This is all a new experience for me. And the person will guide them through the different aisles of Bunnings to show them what they may or may not need. So you've got this guardian out of myth turned up. And he's leading you through a process. They've got some knowledge you haven't got. They're going to impart that knowledge to you. Then you go online and you look up how to work the mathematics of hinges and how to work the mathematics of creating at least a semblance of a box that makes sense. So you're learning a new skill. Nothing still manifests. You've got all these bits and pieces. And then you sit down and you've got all this knowledge that you've gained. You've met your guardians. You've done your study. You sit down and you make a box. You screw it all together, or you hammer it, or you glue it, or in one instance with one of my lovely students, he did a plastic box and put an apple in it for the teacher. It was so cute. The sparkles, but you put it together and then you turn up here on the Saturday when we're having our class and you show me the box and you're very, very proud. They go, but it was never about you. And you go, what? It's never about you. It's not. You see, it could be about one of the nails. It could be about the glue in 2,000 years from now, what it wants to become, how it wants to express itself. But we don't. We think in anthropomorphic terms. We think purely and simply as a human idiot about what we're supposed to do and what we're supposed to make. We don't think consciously of the whole process. Now, when we stop and we start thinking of the whole process, for example, I'm sitting here in a 100-year-old house. I'm living with my two best friends. Before I got this house 4 years ago, I sat outside at night at my daughter's house here in Melbourne. I put my bare feet on the ground, and I whispered, darling, you find me. That was it. And all through the tree roots, sending out messages, because everything's connected. And it just needed to be tied, and everything happens in its own time. If we make communion, if we make connections, if we allow that space, we don't impose ourselves on the world, because that's an illusion in itself. That's bullshit in itself, that imposition, okay? So I sat there and I waited and still did the walking. We hoofed it all across the city, going to all of these different rented places that were they're available, and there's 50, 60 people turn up at each place here because Melbourne is a very, very popular city. And here's me with tattoos on my face. So how am I going to be taken by a real estate agent standing there looking at 50 or 60 people? Okay, we finally came to this house, and what we wanted was a house where we could punch holes in the wall and put pictures up. Not something that was renovated, etc., something with mood and character. And so Letitia turned up. And we turned up at Letitia. This is the name of our house, or the house that loves us.
I love that.
And there's 50, 60 people there, and the agent turned up, and my friend and I were the first to look at it, and I looked this woman in the eye, and she took a step back, and we walked through Letitia's vastness, her grandeur, and walked back out again, and I looked at the agent in the eye again, and I said, "This is our house," and she said, "I know." And I gave her my paper. I gave her my paperwork because I'm not a slattern. I'm not a slovenly woman. I work a lot. And she came back to me. She said, "It's your house. It was always going to be your house." And so we've been here for 4 years. And in the backyard here was grass, and we dug down 4 foot and removed the grass and put in compost and put in lucerne and put in blood and bone, etc. And built an entire organic garden that feeds us now. We could be out of here tomorrow. You don't know. But the thing about environments nurture you. You're in an environment, one of you is in an environment that's got no nurturing. I read tarot for a man who couldn't sell his house in Suffolk Park, which is right on the beachfront up in Byron, where I come from. And he said, "Why can't I sell my house?" And I went, I don't want to tell you. He said, "Why can't I sell my fucking house? Everybody else can sell their houses. It's excess of $1 million per house there, Australian money." And I said, "I don't want to tell you." And he said, "Oh, please tell me." And we went on. So the thing is, I have to tell him because he's paying me to tell him.
Right.
And the fact was that there's a family living there that loves the house. The house is not going to get rid of the house is not going to get rid of the family. They're a unit. They're a union. It's like when you build a nest in the forest and you've gathered all the pieces together of that nest and you snuggle down in that nest and you raise your young in that nest. That nest and you are a symbiosis. So spell casting has got with letting go of all these preconceived ideas of control and dominance and domination and just chilling the fuck out and being with life because you can't do otherwise.
Right. Wow.
Yeah. I did want to touch on kind of segueing into this subject because it reminds me of assumption and the greed and the envy that you'd been talking about. My sister sent me this about yes, and I resonate with it very much. Like I explained, I grew up in a
Can you give your listeners the 7 faces?
Yes, the 7 faces.
Yeah, can you tell your listeners the 7 faces?
Yes. Greed, envy, guilt, deceit, denial, expectation, and assumption. And I do agree with, I watched your video, the last 2 are probably the most insidious.
Keep going.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm clamming up here. But, the expectation of, what you want from somebody else and the assumption that you're going to get it. I don't know, this is kind of...
It's more than that. It's really into relationships that we're looking at with this because families, you were talking about the fact that you've got a 27-year-old son earlier. I was just listening. Your 27-year-old son, you called him a child. I thought that was fascinating, darling. Absolutely fascinating. When do your children stop being your children? This is the thing, isn't it? When do they become people in their own right that we have to listen to and take notice of and be aware of their opinions in the world? 27 years of age is right on the Saturn return. Very interesting things are going to happen for your son in the next year or 2 years. The choices that he makes
my
in
nephew.
the next year or 2 years.
That's Raina's son.
That's my son, sweetheart.
Yes, I know. Okay. I sort of what's actually happening is that the next 2 years are going to be very interesting for him. The decisions he makes will affect the next 28 years of his life.
Mhm.
Oh wow.
I see that.
Yeah.
If he doesn't listen to his own judgment, his own ethic, his own trust in himself, then he's going to have problems, and it's really good to let him know that. And if he doesn't want to hear about it, because a lot of our kids usually don't want to hear about our woo-woo shit.
He
Yeah.
actually,
Yeah.
I will tell you though, both of my children, I'm very fortunate in this regard, where I purposely stepped away from my children because I didn't want that mommy complex, and they are, I mean, as far as being attached to me in that way, they are not. I always encourage, go for what your heart tells you to go for. I don't push, you should be making money. I don't push, you should be in college. I don't put, because the individual is an individual from moment one. You had said something that I fell in love with about you had someone you had read for, and she had this dream of being in Paris. And, you know, some of your students made a comment about, you know, well, how could she just leave her kids? And you said they are men. They are men. They are men from the moment one. And I took a lot from that.
Okay, that's an interesting. I'll play with you a little bit there. I had a student in my backyard. It was one of my EIDO students, but he was also wanting to learn a little bit about sort of the more mystical side of things, and living in my backyard. And he was about 24, 25 at the time, living in my shed. And I went to the backyard. I have lots of things in my backyard, but not people. Oh, intense sometimes. And he was a little bit worried about the fact. He came to me and he said, women don't like me. I said, well, no, you're a child. He's about 24, 25. He said, what do you mean? I said, you're a child. And he said, no, I'm a man. I said, no, you're not. He said, yes, I am. I said, fucking no, you're not. And I said to him, I said, what does it take to make a man? And he didn't have an answer. And he thought it had to do with age. I'm going, no, it's not that at all. We'll get on to Robert Bly in a moment if we can. I'll get to that in a moment.
Sure.
What it takes to make a man, or a woman even, if we're talking about that, is irrelevant. What it takes to make a man is full personal responsibility. What it takes to make an adult is full personal responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
Malengo can't happen when you take full personal responsibility. If you're living on the street, you could do it really, really well. If you come together in clans and in packs and learn how to hunt, learn how to survive, it's another story. Can be done really, really well. But no, society will say they're homeless, therefore they're useless. I don't agree with that at all. I think it's a natural pack ideal that we're missing out on. Becoming an adult takes full personal responsibility. Age has nothing to do with it, and it doesn't start young. I disagree with you.
Really?
It comes to the stage when a person can feed themselves, hunt their food if they're homeless, know where to thieve when necessary, because that can become necessary. And I'll admit that if a person's homeless, in Australia, if you're homeless and you go past a sheep, you're still legally allowed to take one.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow. See, we have people here getting arrested for feeding the homeless. Yeah.
They're not homeless, they're indigenous. They've given away or lost or had taken away from them certain commodities that represent civilization. Once those things are removed from them, they are free. They're not trapped in fucking four walls. They are actually free to scrounge for tents, to create shelters. The person with a lot to lose has got a lot to lose. The person with nothing to lose. Bob Dylan said it. The person with you ain't got nothing, you got nothing to lose.
That's true.
That's true.
Problems. There's a lot of. I have clients who've got millions of bucks, and they live in terror of losing it. I had clients from 2005 to 2008. I was warning them. I'm going. October 2008 is going down. The money's going down. I'm still seeing it again now. By the way, it's starting to happen again. But it was big. I ended up with Lynn Frank. She was on I'm a Celebrity Out of Here, which was a British show at the time. And when she got evicted, she wanted to come and get a tarot reading with me. And she turned up, and the cameras turned up, and I said, if this gets personal, you've got to get out of here. It got personal within 10 seconds. The camera crew had to get out. But I warned her to diversify her money. And she did. A lot of people didn't listen, and they lost a lot of money. The thing about it wasn't there. It wasn't actually there in the first place because there's no money. Again, it's that assumption of wealth, that assumption of right, that assumption that in some ways we're better than the people who've lost everything, and the fact, the assumption by governments that they can in some way cause that to be an illegal living. Excuse me? They're trying to do it here in Melbourne, which is to make illegal living on the streets.
Yeah, it is here.
They're clustered together for safety. Okay, so assumptions and expectations happen in every family group, in every community. We need to start surprising each other. I think it's also a thing called the Cartman drama triangle. Have you heard of that one?
The Cartman drama triangle? No, I don't know what that is.
Cartman drama triangle. You've got an interrogator and a victim and a rescuer. Now that victim-rescuer role becomes a terrible dynamic also in a lot of relationships. And a terrible dynamic, you can actually see it on the level of a country, whereby there's the victim and there's the rescuer. And what actually happens, and it's happening with your government, you were talking about your government, it's happening with our government, it's happening right around the world at the moment, and always has done, is divide them to conquer them. It's a Machiavellian term. I know for a fact in law, in universities, in law and in politics, The Prince, which Machiavelli wrote, is still being taught, it's still being read. And that's the whole idea. We have to have an enemy. We have to have a drama. There'll be no drama. There'll be no movies without an enemy, without being able to have turning points and all that goes with that. But where was I going with that? I was going somewhere else with that. Oh, it doesn't matter. What else? Okay. Another one is greed. Now, greed's an interesting one. People think of that as consumerism. But that's not all there is to it, because greed can be...
Yeah.
Okay. So you start a conversation with somebody. Before that conversation finishes, that person starts talking about themselves. And they don't shut up. And before you know it, within 5 minutes, you're a fucking wall. Now, I'll stop that in the conversation and go, okay, would you like to have a conversation, or would you like me to be your fucking wall for the next 10 minutes? I can be a wall and shut up, but it has to be a mutually agreed upon thing. Otherwise, you're taking my time.
Right.
Yeah. That's interesting because if most people do, they assume that it's money, but it's time, it's energy. You know, like for example, when because there's a certain section of the pagan community that will get mad at people for charging for tarot readings. But, there's honor in the exchange. You're exchanging energy.
Everybody's got a job. It's a job. I mean, I've got this job. I charge money for it. People come. They agree to pay me money for it. Other people get a job in Myers. They get a job in Walmart. It's a job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've been doing it for a very long time, so I'm a specialist in my job, and therefore I charge probably as much as a doctor, or some doctors. Yeah. And it's beside the point. That kind of criticism is ridiculous. It's when you're a charlatan and you're charging money,
yeah,
you're a snake or a merchant, and you're charging money, that one I disagree with. I want to be able to come away from a situation of having a bodywork session done, for example, and feel better. I don't mind paying that person $140 for making me feel better, because they've given me an hour of their time. So there's an equal exchange there. What I find difficult is, that's a good subject. What I find difficult is people charging money for ritual objects. That's the biggie. Okay. I'm old school. We used to make everything. We handmade our grimoires. We handmade our books. We did everything. We wrote in pen. Everything was handwritten, and everything was then learned by rote, so we didn't have to repeat anything out of a book of shadows, for example. I bought my ritual dagger from a guy called Wayland the Smith when I was 28 years of age, still here. He'd made it by hand out of 13 pattern welded metals. That's a craft. But everything else, when it came to my copper pentacle, when it came to my wand, when it came to my staff, when it came to robes that we wore, ritual, everything was done by hand. Mm-hmm. And you sourced everything yourself. Nowadays you've got shops left, right, and centre selling all the stuff. I mean, I actually do find it effective, but people don't make their own incense.
I used to do that. Yeah, I used to do that.
Yeah.
Wow.
She made some awesome stuff.
You get your charcoal blocks from the Catholic shop because they sell the best one. Three Kings.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It's called Three Kings charcoal blocks. You get your oak moss oil. You get your other oil, whatever oils you like. You can put it all together, make it yourself. Yeah. Buy your resin. Put them all together. But people don't. I mean, I don't do any of it anymore. I can't even light a fucking candle without the world going, what do you fucking want now? Seriously. It's kind of a gesh. Well, I've got a gesh on me anyway, but that's a tricky one. I have to find that one out through trial and error. The truth is, unless there is a blackout, I don't light candles. Because light says, what do you fucking want?
That's true.
Because now I'm an elder woman, what actually happens is I'm supposed to be aiding Earth, not wanting anything. There comes a time when you grow up and you don't want anything.
Yeah.
Okay, Monday here.
I hope to get to that point.
When you've had a few death experiences, I suppose you get to the stage where you get it all sorted out. And we're going to get around to karma in a minute. We're going to talk about that. But I wanted to mention something else to you I find fascinating. I teach a thing called Kabbalah, and it's a very organic understanding of the tree of life. And each of the aspects of it, it's all one thing, but each of the aspects of it is associated with an astrological phenomenon, the planet. So, for example, you've got Malkut associated with the four elements, you've got Yesod associated with the moon, you've got Hud associated with Mercury, you've got Netzach associated with Venus, you've got Tiferet associated with the Sun, you've got Geburah associated with Mars, you've got Chesed associated with Jupiter, and you've got Binah associated with Saturn. You've also got Chokmah associated with Uranus, and you've got Keter associated with Neptune, and then you've got Ein Sof associated with Pluto, blah, blah, blah. That's all really quickly going across it. And the thing about Chesed, and each one of these is associated with a path. There's a path links it, and each one of those paths is associated with the 22 major arcanum of the tarot. Okay? Mm-hmm. You with me so far?
Yes.
Or are you going too fast? I can talk really quickly once I get going, because my brain tends to go faster than my mouth even.
Oh, she's used to it. I do the same thing, so.
Okay. So what actually happens is that each aspect of from Malkut to Keter, when I look at the entire situation, I can see Earth unfolding. It has the appearance of evolution. So, for example, with Malkut is when Earth, the idea historically of when Earth forms. Yesod is when there's an infant seed, and so on. When you get to Chesed, and the whole tree follows a lightning flash, because life happens in a flash. In that 2 seconds that don't even exist that we talked about earlier with the box.
Right.
Okay? So life happens in a flash. So the tree of life is supposedly considered to be Keter to Malkut in a lightning flash. You're following the lightning flash. But all the other spheres that are on the tree or that represent the glyph of the tree are linked by these 22 paths, except between Chesed and Binah on the tree. And Chesed, as I said before, was associated with Jupiter, and Binah is associated with Saturn. Now, Jupiter represents, among other things, expansion. It also represents education, it represents a lot of things, philosophy, but it also represents expansion. Binah on the tree, which is ruled by Saturn, represents contraction, the concept of limitation. So what's actually happening when I look through, this is way too big a story for the show today, but when I'm very aware of where we've been since the Industrial Revolution, which is wallowing in chesed. As I said, chesed is expansion. I hear people saying to me, I wish you abundance, and I scream, don't say that to me. Okay. I don't need, the simpler the better. So what's actually happening with expansion is people are getting fatter. Feces are spreading out all over the place. There is way too many products. Try going into a bookshop and just picking one book or seeing anything, because it becomes too, there's a thing called the tipping point. And we're right there now. And the tipping point is, there's been experiments done. I think it was UCLA, or Berkeley, in your country, where 5 jams were put together. 5 strawberry jams were put together, and the students were asked to choose their favorite jam. And most of them chose the same one. Then 50 jams were put in the same environment, and nobody could choose anything.
Too
many
choices.
Are they choices? Or does it actually just fuck with our heads? It just fucks with our heads. So it is with books. So it is with information. We don't know what's real. Everything's starting to change. We're coming to the exploitative end of chesed. Binah, which is ruled by Saturn, is coming in as well, which is security, impeachment of civil liberties. All of these things are happening. But the closing down is also happening simultaneously. On the tree of life, we're going across a thing called the abyss. The abyss is the art, which is first earth. That's a whole other story when it comes down to learning. But we're passing a place that's never been passed in our consciousness before. I know what happens after, but that could be another 2,500 fucking years. And I know that it's productive, it's exciting, but I do know that we're going down first, and that could mean another ice age. That's fine, because I'll mention here, we're all together here, aren't we?
Yes.
Okay. That means, because we're here now, that means we've always been here. Because you've got a mother and a father, and you've got a mother and a father, and they've got a mother and a father, and they've got a mother and a father, ad infinitum, all the way down through life. We've always been here. We're the product or the outcome of eternity. We're the product of the outcome of a theoretical Big Bang. You get me?
Yeah.
Okay. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here, because nothing comes from nothing.
Correct.
True.
Now we've had, Earth has had herself several ice ages and several glaciation periods. We're coming to the end of an ice age now. I'll mention that because of global warming. Global warming is a wrong term, or an incorrect term. Climate change is a different concept. The planet is warming. It's coming out of the end of an ice age. Okay. What actually happening also, so we've always been here. So how did we survive all those ice ages? Because we did. And we don't think that we did. We think the planet was wiped out, as far as life is concerned, through an ice age. It's just not possible. We wouldn't have possums. We wouldn't have hedgehogs. We wouldn't have voles. We wouldn't have bears still, unless they'd always been there. So something is incorrect as far as what we're being taught historically.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah?
I don't think about these things. Yeah, this is fascinating.
Okay, so let's discuss a possibility. I want to mention Steve Williams right at the moment. Steve Williams is an old friend of mine, was a student again at one stage in time. He was studying to be a priest, and he went, "What the fuck am I doing?" Changed all that, became pagan and everything, and he's a horticulturalist. He's mentioned in the book Initiation, because he's the one who told me to pull Phidias up because she seemed to die. Okay. Phidias was a tree, a ficus, by the way, my friend. Taught me everything about relationships those trees did, and my fucking dog did, of course, jungle. Okay, but I'm digressing. Okay, he raised the possibility. So let's talk about oil for a moment. Pollution.
Yeah.
The oil, all the oil is being pumped out of the ground. And what did the oil used to be?
Fossils.
Forests.
Oh. Yeah, I thought the same. You know, we've always been taught it was like, you know, fossil fuel, like dinosaurs.
That forest.
But
That's
I
right.
didn't even consider trees. Yeah.
Yeah, forest. And the species that roam those forests, and the lakes around the forest, and the sediment associated with those lakes, that's oil. And it's being pumped out. It's being pumped out of the ground by the billions of barrelfuls, and it's being re-released into the atmosphere. So it's a homeopathic of what it originally was, which was forests and everything that dwelt within them before an ice age. So what's actually happening where, see, if I'm removing the Godhead ideology from being human for a moment, what's actually happening is as the fossil fuels are released into the environment homeopathically by the cloud load, we're helping Earth to form another ice age. Breathe in, breathe out, babe. Breathe in, breathe out. That's what we do as a species, that's what we do as an Earth. We breathe in, we breathe out. We need time to relax.
Yeah.
Okay, that's one thing. The mess is something else again. Each of us individually needs to look at the mess we make and clean our act up. If it aesthetically, it's more lovely when we don't have a mess. But as a species, when we talk about the pollution of the Earth, the way the pollution is, it's as if we cause ourselves incredible trauma and incredible anxiety that is unnecessary. As an entire species, if we each take responsibility for our own waste, it starts with one, just me. We need to stop this anxiety. We can form lobbies and we can lobby governments, etc. But as far back as I can look, there's been this brutality that's part of us as a species. Oh, I could go everywhere with this. But that comes down to, as Ria and I said in The Chalice and the Blade, there being a taker and leaver culture. So I just recommend people go read The Chalice and the Blade by Rian Eisler. That's either that or they can go read Ishmael by Daniel Quinn. It's saying the same thing. Or watch the movie Instinct with Cuba Gooding Jr. It's still going to teach you what you need to know about personal responsibility. They're really, really profound things to understand that there's a taker. So one has to ask oneself, am I a taker or am I a leaver? A leaver culture is a culture that is quite often nomadic, that will not leave a mess behind them. When they start to take too much from a particular area, they'll move to another one. And so that area can then regenerate.
Wow.
We're not doing that. But it comes back to each individual person and doing what we can. That was one thing I wanted to talk about. The other thing I wanted to talk about was religion. Okay, I've sort of been building to this a little bit, and that was the whole idea of, cargo cult mentality. Can we think that perhaps, back in the 1970s or 80s, I read a newspaper article about a coal seam that was being dug out in London for a new branch of the metro. And the men who were digging it out found a little gold object in the coal. And the little gold object, which was on a plinth on the front pages of the newspaper, was an F-111 with its landing gear down, about the size of my thumb. Now, do you know how old a coal seam is? What's a coal seam?
I'm sorry, what?
A coal seam's a fucking forest again. On its way to becoming diamonds. It's millions and millions of years old. How did a gold F-111 that was crafted by hand end up in a coal seam?
Wow,
because it was made when that was a forest by some craft person. when I went to London, I went looking for it at the London Museum, and it disappeared. It's not on there anymore, and I just want to slash myself every now and again for not keeping these newspaper articles, but I didn't. Anyway, that got me thinking. That got me really, really thinking. And I also read an article about cargo cult mentality. Cargo cult, the terminology came from when anthropologists went to the highlands of New Guinea in the 1980s and encountered tribes of people that had never seen Anglo or European people before, but they had built all their temples to look like aeroplanes. And they built their temples to look like aeroplanes because during the Second World War, the Yanks used to drop Coca-Cola and bags of supplies for their troops.
Mm-hmm.
And so the indigenous people, the natives of the Highland New Guinea, thought that these were the gods giving them gifts. So they needed to get rid of whatever they were as temples and build these aeroplanes as temples. So when the anthropologists got there, that's what they saw. It was the term is cargo cult. So what actually happened is religion is cargo cult mentality. Okay, let's backtrack a little bit. Let's say we're all around, we're talking homeopathically, let's say we're all around before the last ice age. And we've developed technologies beyond all belief. We've even learned to telepath, for goodness sake. We've even learned to teleport, whatever else. We're getting close to that now. We've got all these technologies, and all of a sudden an ice age hit. We go down into the underground of Cappadocia. We go down into the underground of the tunnels of Scotland. We go down into the underground of Petra, the different stone cities that we built because we knew this was going to happen, because some weatherman said it was going to happen. And we have all this knowledge of technology and rocket ships and goodness knows what else, and we're down there in the caves, and we're down there for hundreds of years. And we tell our children, we try to keep the knowledge alive. So we tell our children about the technologies, and we tell our children about history, and then they tell their children, and they tell their children. And by the time we have the whole Chinese whispers game happening, we have the 5th generation or the 6th generation, and they come above land, and they're finally eating food that's starting to regenerate after the Ice Age. They've got these legends and these stories in their heads that they're telling their children, and they end up being biblical. Because burning bushes, Sodom and Gomorrah, the walls of Jericho. This is sound technology. Even the Irish legends of Balor, of the single eye, that eye could look at something and burn it to a crisp, into non-existence, into annihilation. What are these legends all about? People don't take them seriously, do they?
No.
And they end up being religious. I remember at one stage in time, I think it was in The Head of God, one of the books that I read. Anyway, you actually used to read books, for goodness sakes. We had libraries. It was hilarious. Was the fact that one of the so-called, in the book of Ezekiel, biblically, there's the description, complete description of this craft that goes up to heaven. And the guy who wrote, I think it was The Head of God, I'm not too sure now, wrote that. He actually just took the whole description and he sent it to a friend of his who works in NASA, and he said, what is this? And the guy came back and he said, it's a lunar landing module, but it's got more wheels. I'm raising up the whole idea of there being old man in the sky. Okay, there's a big difference in my understanding of mystery between the anthropomorphic, and I got a letter yesterday, a fascinating letter from a young woman. I'll get back to that in a minute. And it was a dream that she had, and we had a conversation for about 2 hours about her dream. Okay. She was running from a house on the top of a hill to a house below the hill that she was meant to get to, which has got to do with going deeper into herself. And she was running so fast because she was being chased by a whirlwind. Wow. And when she got to the porch and a place of safety, she turned around and it was a little girl, and the little girl said, I am God.
Wow.
Okay, I said to her, do you know the word jinn? She said, no, I don't know the word. It's D-J-I-N-N. The word genie comes from that. Okay,
Yeah,
so the jinn were the great winds that raised huge fucking dust storms across the whole of the Middle East, that brought the tornadoes of dust and that created incredible devastation. In Japan, before Shinto became modernized, the so-called deities were called kami, K-A-M-I. And kami could be that great tree, or that massive hill, or that standing stone. Each of these things has a part to play in the living environment. When I was doing my study of the history of the Celtic lands and the history of the Greenlands, I learned all the tribal names. And one of the tribal names that ended up being part of my people in there is called the Brigantians. The Brigantians were up around Lancashire and Yorkshire on the borderlands of what's now known as Scotland. But the Druids don't like the word Scotland. They call it Albion because Scotland was a Roman word. Yeah. Anyway, I digress. So in the texts that I've read, the Brigantian people supposedly worshipped Bridget. You just got something in your head right then, didn't you? And it's wrong.
Oh, Bridget?
You saw a female.
Yes.
You're right, I did.
You saw a person.
Yeah.
And you're fucking wrong.
Huh.
And the whole use of the word worship is fucking wrong.
Really?
The Brigantian people are the Pennines. We are a vast mountain chain. We are the oaks. We are the voles. We are the lynx and the bear. We are the wolves that run that country. We are the acorns that we turn into bread. We are every single thing that we eat and that eats us.
Huh.
That's Bridget.
That's awesome.
Not a person. Every single environment. When people say to me, I worship the Morrigan, I go, what the fuck are you talking about? And what do you see when I say the Morrigan? You see somebody dressed in black with a fucking sword in their hand, don't you?
Yes.
I saw a bird, actually.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you're wrong. You're wrong. Because the word Morrigan is Mori. Mor in Irish is great or huge. Re is queen. And queen is a modern word because the land was always sovereign and the people were not separate from the land. Every species, each species knows its territory. What's actually started happening with takers is that they've come into other people's territory. They've come into the territory of another animal. That animal has attempted to fight back and they've slaughtered the animals that live there.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the whole idea of Britain invading Australia, for example. Okay, those people have come in to another people. Those animals have come into another animal's country and they've slaughtered, and they're still slaughtering today.
Like we did with the Native Americans.
You didn't.
Well, no, not me. I'm not. Yeah, I'm only a first and the second generation American.
Colonialism, the people or the animals under the title of colonialism did that. They came into another animal's territory and they slaughtered.
Yeah.
And the animals in every other species, if you're a raven and you go into a raven's territory that's not your territory, they'll peck you to fucking pieces, and they have every right to do that. And the indigenous people of every land had every right to fight back. And the people that invaded should have just got the fuck out. Oops.
Yeah.
You're here. Sorry. Oops, sorry. Sorry about that. Oh, we didn't realize there was somebody living here. And they should have gone again. And they still should be leaving. I have no right to be in this country. Unfortunately, I have offspring here, and they have offspring. And therefore, I'm sort of in love with my offspring and their offspring, so I stay. But I'm also not allowed back in my home territory, except to visit. I'm first generation here. Yeah, I'm Brittany. I'm Brittany.
Huh.
And this awareness, it just needs to. I just need to do anything. I don't think people are going to change their minds, but it's like I'm one piss in the ocean. But I'll keep
Yeah, but
I'll do that right now.
Keep doing it, because without
Yeah.
that, no one gets the knowledge, and some of us would like the knowledge.
Yes.
Well, the thing about
I think this is the quietest we've ever been.
You think what?
I was saying, I think this is the quietest that we've ever been, because I'm like, I wish we could extend the show a little bit more, but if we can't, I'm fascinated. I'm fascinated with this.
Have we finished? We done?
No, not yet. We've got 19 more minutes left, so
19 more minutes. Okay, one more thing. Okay, then let's talk about Brittany, if we can.
Yes.
Because understanding the invasions is really important. Because my grandfather, 2,000 years ago, was named Caradoc ap Cunibellus, was his name. And his brother was, and Cunibellus was his father, and he was Catuvellauni, and he had two brothers, Adminius and Toncodumnus. And he lived among the Siluries and the Ordovices, which is now in the Welsh, known as Wales, up in the hills there. And the expression fight and run away and live to fight another day is his. And I've studied this man's knowledge of his time, and Bodega, who also burnt Londinium to the ground and ended up sort of like being destroyed completely because of the Romans invading her territory, the Echenai territory over on the east coast of what's now called England. And ended up catching my grandfather because of the woman they put in position of client queen, that word queen's interesting, of the Catuvellauni people. Trapped him, did him in, she had to, and they took him to Rome in a bear cage, and they were going to slaughter him on the Appian Way, but he was very, very lucid in Latin, so they didn't. That's beside the point. The lights went out after Bodega. Bodega is what's commonly called Boadicea. That's the Roman term for her. Bodega is not a name, it's a title. It means bringer of victory. And she, again, like my grandfather, united the tribes of Britain. And later, Geoffrey of Monmouth wrote about Arthur. And Arthur was supposed to give Britain back a Celtic soul, but it was too Christianized by then, and it didn't end up happening. But Arthur was based on my grandfather, Caradoc, who united the tribes against Rome. Why I'm getting to that is they got destroyed. The lights they were wiped out, and in came the Saxons, because the Saxons came in with the Romans, and the Saxons came in and they settled, and after the Saxons came the Jutes and the Angles, and in came the Danes, and in came the Vikings, Norsemen, and then later on in came the Normans around the 10th century, etc. And by then, the indigenous people of that country were completely written out of history. You didn't learn about them. I didn't learn about them. Nobody learns about them in history. Hardly anybody knows the name Calgacus. Calgacus, before the Battle of Mons Graupius, stood there and said of Rome, and said, "You give us a wasteland and call it peace." And then 10,000 people were slaughtered that day by the Romans. They were indigenous to that land. This is Scotland, what's now known as Scotland. These were Picts. So 10,000 people killed in one day. And you know how I know this?
How?
Because I read the Annals of Tacitus. Tacitus was the
What is that?
scribe. Tacitus was a man, and he was the scribe. He was the scribe on the ground for all of those invasions. Before that was Julius Caesar. He came beforehand, and he wrote a thing called the Gallo Wars. Have you read that?
No.
Have you read Tacitus' Annals?
No.
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 So this information that I'm telling you right now is written down. And nobody
Yeah, I
said
had
it.
no idea this existed.
Okay, so when I got all this information and I found out from my housemate, who's the incredible genealogist, that this is my grandfather, and he's very meticulous with his work, I'd been studying this for 40 years. So I knew his name like the back of my hand. So when Bernard turns up and said, I found you a relative that's not fucking English, his name's Caradoc Soluris, his name is not actually Soluris at all. That's where he was living.
Oh.
The thing about, for me anyway, about being witch, it's not about, it's a scholarly work. I'm an indigenous woman. But I can't be an indigenous woman and just fucking claim it. I've got to have the knowledge and the understanding from a very deep place, from a rich mother forest. Because what we're taught from a Christianized background of education. Okay, we've gone from monotheism, which is the whole idea of an old man in the fucking sky, for goodness sakes, please pull my other leg, to the idea of dualism. So it's gone from this one God to the idea of God and a goddess, and then you get all these battles between men and women. I'm going, can you just stop this rubbish? Stop anthropomorphizing the truth.
Yeah.
I mean, people are going to keep doing it. They're going to keep writing books about it because of fucking Carl Jung. I don't necessarily hate Carl Jung, but I've got a bit of a bitch about him because he raised up all these archetypes and they all ended up being men and women. And there was no natural landscapes anywhere. And until the natural landscapes and the understanding that these deities are genus loci, they have a spirit of place, and then Manan Maclear. You know Manan Maclear?
I've heard of it. Sounds.
Manan Maclear is the fucking ocean.
Ah.
And, all right.
Wow. I have to rework everything I was ever taught. Holy shit.
Yeah.
And there's another one. There's an interesting one. Again, because I'm listening. Remember I told you earlier on down the line that I hear things literally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shit is not holy. Okay. With my students, the first week that they come to learn from me, I'm a mean bitch. But what I want them to do is to lose every single Abrahamic terminology from their language. And that includes words like sacred and holy. Replacing them with other words that don't have a religious connotation. Don't say, oh God, in front of me, or oh my God, because that's a religious connotation. That's if you are real, if you are honest, and if you are given the information that will allow you the freedom and the liberation from that Abrahamic brainwashing, will you take the opportunity or will you throw it away because it's too hard?
I would take the opportunity.
Cool. It's the same with Malengo. If you have an opportunity to live your life by doing for the doing's sake instead of having expectations, will you do for the doing's sake?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I had a student at one of my tarot collectives at one stage in time. Now, one other subject in here, you choose your own reality. Now, I can just fucking scream. When I hear that terminology, I just want to scream. I had this woman sitting in my class. I ended up saying, get out. She said, you choose your own reality. I said, does that include people who get cancer? She said, yes, they brought that on themselves. I said, get the fuck out of my class.
Oh, wow.
I have a friend back in Sydney. She was back in the 80s. She was one of the heads of the RSPCA. She was called out one day because of the howls that were taking place in a backyard close to these people. So they reported it, and they turned up there, and huge wire, 11-foot wire fencing all around this area, this compound that had 17 dogs in it. And those 17 dogs, which had been appropriated or misappropriated to be trained as guard dogs, had been chained up in this compound. And they had been left. And they were up to their fetlocks in shit. Chains had got buried in necks. Some of those dogs were so emaciated that most of them had to be put down. One or two could be saved.
Oh.
Did they call that? The children just this week who got buried under that pile of rubbish in the Philippines? Did they choose that? No, they didn't. To be able to, that's a move away from Christianity and guilt into a New Age terminology. The bottom line, if we say things like that, we don't go hunting for the root cause of why we now get so much breast cancer and cervical cancer, and why men get so much more prostate cancer than they ever used to. Because when I was a child, cancer was rare. People died of heart attacks. They died of stroke. They didn't die of cancer.
I remember that. You're right.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yes, that says to me something has come into our environment that we need to seriously look at. And I'm suggesting we look at the pill and other big pharma-induced forms of contraception. And we also look at the phytoestrogens, which is a false estrogen that goes into our water, and there's a 125,000-year breakdown, just like uranium, by the way. I thought I'd mention that because, fuck, that's how long it takes to break down in water. And that estrogen is allowing male birds to roost with male birds all across America. I heard this in the 90s by a man called Dr. John Lee, who came to Sydney to a medical symposium, and the first thing he did is walk out on the stage and say to a room full of gynecologists, 200 of them, he said, "Why are you all killing women?"
Wow.
So, and instead of playing that stupid game of saying you create your own reality, let's look at the root causes of causing the distress. All of the additives in food.
Oh, yeah.
Environmental pollutants left, right and centre. Why are so many Chinese going to Finland for their holidays? Lapland for their holidays? They're going there for their clean air. Because they can't fucking breathe.
Right.
So
well, I remember when there were no peanut allergies. Remember that lie?
That was before the use of all the pesticides.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which is what's killing the bees, too.
Is the immune systems of us as a species. It's not just us as a species. A forest fire will go all the way through California and devastate the hills of California. Who's picking up the burnt animals? Who's helping the burnt possums and the burnt eagles and the burnt sparrows? And who's caring?
Yeah.
People talk in terms of the almighty fucking dollar and the amount that it's going to cost to regenerate that area. I could bleed.
Yeah.
So, all I ask, if I'm to ask anything of anybody, is people take personal responsibility for their education and for what they'll believe, and that they'll question what they're being taught, and they'll go into work with a scholarly brain. You don't have to go through academia. Academia teaches you rubbish half the time anyway. I've been there. I know what that's like.
Yeah.
And they just teach you what somebody else has taught you. They don't really actually teach you to think. But if you learn to the contrary of history, and that's, for example, if you learn on the side of the invaded, not the side of the invader, then you maybe get a different kind of an opinion. I gave this information to some indigenous people here in Australia about Brittany. Brittany, by the way, means painted people. That's what Julius Caesar thought we were, because we were covered in blue ink. It means the painted people. We were tattooed. Okay, that's why. And the word Briton comes from Brittany. The word Brittany across the channel in northern France is Brittany. It's all the same thing. But I'm digressing, aren't I? I get a little carried away at times. So it comes down to the idea. For example, Gerald Gardner invented Wicca when the Witchcraft Act was repealed in 1951. And I have no problem with anybody creating a reality for themselves to sit in. It's like creating a nest or a home, no problem. And I was as responsible for being caught up in Wicca as anybody else from my 28 years onwards, because there was no witchcraft working. There was no work around being witched. There was nothing. There was just this other thing that Gerald Gardner had created. And when one goes into the actual, really looking at what's going down, because Alex Sanders was one of his students, and Doreen Valiente was there as well. And Doreen Valiente made a mistake because she said all gods are one god, or all goddesses are one god. So I said, it's monotheism, that's bullshit. And I'm as responsible for using that in Witchcraft Theory and Practice as anything, and I apologize to my readers for that. So go back and question everything I've fucking written as well in that book, which is still selling 16 years later. It's been amended in Initiation, a memoir. I've amended it because I've learned better. I've gone deeper. I couldn't sit still. I couldn't just wear that single fucking garment and think that was enough. It became pretentious. I know that other people will hate me out there for saying this, but I don't care. Right? Just it's entirely up to you what you do. But the thing about life is it's change, isn't it? Nothing. We have a season. We have a season of plenty. We have a season of leanness. We have a season. We have a season when we're born. We have a season when we fucking die. We have a season when we change our minds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nobody has to. I'm not suggesting for a moment anybody has to be. People involved in Wicca wouldn't write a book if they didn't. But they're all the same fucking book. This is the problem, isn't it?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
But
go ahead.
Knowledge. You first.
Who first? Who's on first?
Lie first. Lie first.
Where's the deeper knowledge? Where's the scholarly knowledge? Where's the philosophy as us as a clique, us as a culture? Where's the philosophy? Okay, earlier on I heard you talking in there about the whole idea of spellcrafting, etc. And there's this expression in Wicca that says, "Do as you will, you harm none." I go very quiet at this because I remember when there was a man in Byron Bay on the streets giving away tastes of ice to the kids, giving away tastes. What does one do about that? One goes very quiet, one does. I don't say anything. But what does one do? That's all. I remember when Z Budapest, I went to a first Mount Franklin gathering here in Australia. This is 35 years ago today, which is my son's birthday. Happy birthday.
Oh, happy birthday.
Yeah. And I was pregnant with him when we went to the first Mount Franklin gathering, and Z Budapest had sent a tape across from America to us, and it was about, she had a feminist lesbian coven, entirely her choice. She had a fully lesbian coven, and one of their witches had been glassed by a man and was in hospital. There was a debate going down whether or not they should do anything about it. I went quiet. You don't say anything. You don't say anything. This is not a debate. You just go quiet. You work it out. You don't tell anybody.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. And I hate to do this. We are down to like 2.5 minutes. Because I could go on for like 8 hours talking to you. I could just sit and listen to you.
Well,
I really could.
I'm hungry.
Oh, okay. I know you probably need breakfast. It's this morning over there.
Yeah, just about 3 minutes off midday.
Wow.
Oh, okay. Well, then we will go ahead and let you go. And thank you so much for coming.
Absolutely.
Did you still want to do the book?
Huh?
Did you still want to? Were you still doing the book giveaway you were talking about, or?
Oh, yeah, 2 of them. Now, if just you grab them, put their names in a hat. Anybody phones in wants a copy of Initiation, a memoir.
Okay.
Giving them away. So you pull their names out of a hat and you send them to me, and I'll get the books to them within the week.
Awesome. We'll do it.
Right. That sounds awesome. Thank you so much for doing that, by the way, too.
Lie DeAngelis, thank you so much for coming on with us.
Thank you, Dorian. Thank you, Raina. I love you heaps.
Love you heaps too, lady. Thank you.
Love you. And we'll talk about you coming back. Please, please, please.
Cool. Ciao. Have a gorgeous day.
Thank you. You too. Go get something to eat. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for tuning in, and we will be back next week. I believe, who is it? Is it Star or Byron?
I'm sorry, my brain is
don't worry
going a million miles a minute right now.
I know, right?
Sorry. That was
Okay.
fascinating, and I've got to like rethink a whole lot of things.
Process
'cause
it.
I've got to process. This is amazing. Yeah. She's fabulous. Please buy Initiation, a memoir, and please look at all of her other books. This is a fascinating woman. Wow.
I'm speechless. I'm speechless. So we're gonna end the episode because I want to bask in that.
Oh, wait 1 second before we go. If you want to be in the drawing, please drop a message on our show page. You have until midnight Sunday morning to enter your name for the giveaway, and we will auto-generate a list and pick 2 from that. We will let the machines do that thing. And, yeah, that would be fantastic. So please drop us a message at our show page.
Okay. Love you guys. Bye.
Bye.
Napa pura calidad.
Dale más vida a tu carro con Napa. Aceite convencional para motor Pennzoil por solo $3.49 el cuarto. Además ahorras $10 por par, llevándote los limpiaparabrisas Bosch Evolution Beam. Lógralo con Napa. Pura calidad.
Oferta válida hasta el 28 de febrero. Precio general en los diferentes estados. El precio no incluye impuestos aplicables ni cargos por reciclaje. Ver tienda para detalles.
Napa pura calidad. Napa pura calidad.
Dale más vida a tu carro con Napa. Aceite convencional para motor Pennzoil por solo $3.49 el cuarto. Además ahorras $10 por par, llevándote los limpiaparabrisas Bosch Evolution Beam. Lógralo con Napa. Pura calidad.
Oferta válida hasta el 28 de febrero. Precio general en los diferentes estados. El precio no incluye impuestos aplicables ni cargos por reciclaje. Ver tienda para detalles.
Napa pura calidad.